Day. The Committee on Health, Tourism, Historic Preservation, Land and Justice is now called to order. Today's Monday, December 7th, 2020, and the time is 5:34 p.m. Notices for this confirmation and a public hearing were disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets on Monday, November 30, and again on Friday, December 4th, 2020. The notice was also published in the Guam Daily Post on Monday, November 30, and Friday, December 4th. The host of this hearing will mute all Zoom participants until called upon by the chair. Individuals testifying shall first be recognized by the chair before speaking and begin by stating their name for the record, please. We have two agenda items for today. The first is the reappointment of Dr. Annette M. David as a member to the Guam Board of Medical Examiners for a term length of 4 years from August 20, 2020 to August 19th, 2024. The second agenda item is a public hearing on Bill number 425-35 COR, sponsored by Senators Joe S. San Augustine, Speaker Tina Muñoz Barnes, and Jose Pito Terlaje. An act to amend section 75122 of chapter 75 of title 21 Guam Code annotated relative to the designation of available Tomorrowland Trust property and lease agreement stipulations for commercial lease. I'd like to thank the senators who are present today, beginning with my Vice Chair, Senator Sabina Perez. Also present are Senator Joe San Augustine, our Minority Leader, Senator Terlaje, and our Assistant Majority Leader, Senator Kelly Marsh Taitano. I think I've got them all. All right, so we will begin now with the appointment of Dr. David. Again, pardon?
Senator Jim. Senator.
Oh, sorry. So Senator Jim Moylan, thank you very much. Thank you, Senator Moylan, and all senators for being present today. Okay, so we'll begin with the reappointment of Dr. David to serve on the Guam Board of Medical Examiners for a term length of 4 years, from August 2020 to August 19, 2024. Dr. David was previously appointed to the board in July of 2019 and confirmed in September of 2019 to fill the remainder of the 4-year term of Dr. Joan Gill, this term expired on August 19, 2020. All right, so some of the duties of the Guam Board of Medical Examiners, as stated in the Guam Code annotated, are to evaluate previous professional performance of applicants, issue or deny initial or endorsement licenses, approve or deny applications for license re-registration and renewal, receive, review, and investigate complaints, receive, review, and investigate reports received from law enforcement agencies, healthcare organizations, and others regarding licensees. Discipline licensees found in violation of the Medical Malpractice Act. Reinstate revoked license at its discretion in a manner that will not jeopardize the public. Receive, review, and investigate peer review findings or actions received from healthcare organizations pertinent to the professional performance of a licensee. These are just some of the duties of the board, but these are the most pressing ones, I think, for the public at this point. So, Dr. David, we have so many people signed up who have submitted written testimony in support of your nomination. Those include the Guam Behavioral Health Director, Therese Areola, Ms. Rita Edwards, Archbishop Michael J. Burns, Dr. Ramel A. Carlos, Board Certified Neurologist, Dr. Gladys Lisangan, Board Certified Pediatrics, Dr. Antonio Garcia, MedFirst Pediatrics, Ms. Catherine M.R. Castro, Barbara Beneventi, Annabelle Lyman, Dr. Yvette Polino, Dr. Ray Somera, and Dr. Lilnabeth Somera, Dan Witzling, who is the Executive Director of the American Cancer Society, and M. Cynthia Au, Grassroots Manager, American Cancer Society. And so Dr. David, we are opening the floor to hear from you now, if you wish to address the panel.
Honorable Senators, I thank you all, and I thank the Governor and Lieutenant Governor for the opportunity to continue to serve our community. I think this year has been a very strange year in that it highlighted the importance of health and healthcare to the entire life of our island. And it is my hope that I'll be able to continue to serve in the capacity as a member of the Guam Board of Medical Examiners. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. David. I want to thank you again for being willing to continue to serve in this capacity for the next 4 years and for your service over the past year. There were some issues that have come up with the Medical Licensing Board that I would just like to ask you about today, if that's okay. Well, first of all, have you been able to attend the meetings? Has that been an issue for you, or is that not an issue? No issue.
Not an issue at all, Senator. And I think, if anything, this year's use of virtual meetings has facilitated the connection and the continuity.
Great. All right. And all right. There were some issues that came up during an oversight hearing that we had over the licensing offices, or the Licensing Office of Public Health, that takes care of all the licensing boards for health and allied health. And so one of these were, some of these were complaints from the public who had filed complaints through the boards regarding the prolonged status of investigations into their complaints, or complaints that were investigated and did not result in a hearing, or decisions that were reported to the media before reported to the complainant, or concerns for the investigation process being compromised by what they observed as inherent biases by members of the boards towards health professionals in question. And other issues such as board non-compliance with Public Law 3184, which is the Patient Protection Through Information Act, which requires information be put up on the website for all the public to see as to complaints and different actions in regards to practitioners. So as to these complaints, Dr. David, how would you, describe your experience on the board? And do you feel like we are able to serve the public as best we can in regards to processing of complaints, especially?
I think those are all very important issues, Senator. And I think from a perspective of intention, I think it's clear to me that the board is very committed to ensuring the safety of our island community. That being said, there continue to be certain barriers or challenges that may impede the efficiency or the speed with which some of the board functions are carried out. And I know that we are working with your office to help address some of those barriers. And for instance, the website, I believe that at this point, there's been some progress on securing the contract to help set that up and get that up and running, which is clearly a priority. There have also been issues with the board's fiscal ability to be able to bring on board independent experts to weigh in on some of the cases. So I think that is also a priority that we continue to work on. But again, despite the challenges, I do believe that the board has been exerting its efforts and has certainly reaffirmed its commitment to ensuring the safety of our island community.
All right, thank you. And I appreciate the progress that the board has made in these regards. You're right. So the funding of these licensing boards is supposed to be through the fees that they generate for, license fees. And each board's supposed to be able to use those fees to procure, attorneys that they need for hearings or for investigators, whatever they need. It wasn't the case for many years that they were able to use that money, but supposedly now they've been able to procure all these services that are necessary to have proper hearings for complaints. So I'm hoping that that moves forward, and the website for the medical board that is required. There was another series of complaints regarding licensing approval of health professionals with past cases of serious allegations or violations. How is the board able to address those issues, I guess?
Yes, and those are highly critical issues. And I would say that I would sort them out into two general categories. One would be a competency set of issues, and the other would have to do with conduct, with professional conduct and ethical behavior. And the board has certainly, in the time that I've been there, taken both of these issues very seriously. And in fact, there have been some applications that have not been considered because of the presence of significant issues. There's a review process that we follow in terms of reviewing all of the credentials and documentation that comes in. And that has been pretty much a standardized procedure so that it is systematically done for all applicants. And I believe that by exercising that due diligence consistently, that this should not be a major issue for our island. I think the key here is really the focus on ensuring the safety of the people in Guam, which means that sometimes even if we don't have as many health professionals and in certain specialties that remain very scant, if professional standards are not met, then I believe that the board has done its due diligence to ensure that that we only accept applicants who meet the required standards for practice here in our island.
I appreciate that. And again, I appreciate your willingness to continue to serve on this board. Dr. David has a very extensive resume on file. It's been provided to all the senators and very high credentials and all the testimony in her favor talks about her integrity and not just her professional conduct, but a lot of it has to do with her integrity and ability to bring that integrity to service on this board. So I'm going to open it now to the other senators. If any of you have questions or comments for this nominee, Senator Perez.
Hapaday. Thank you, Madam Chair, and Hapaday, Dr. Annette. It's great to see you, and thank you for accepting the nomination to continue on this board. And I think the chair asked really great questions, and I don't have any further questions, but I'm just glad that you're serving. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Senator Kelly Marsh Titan.
Joyce Massey, Chairwoman, and very nice to have you here, Dr. David. So as the Chairwoman was mentioning, as I read through your nomination packet and your very extensive set of testimony, a lot of things really just jumped out to me. So you've been and are continuing to be a member of several medical and other boards, including being part of the American Cancer Society, previously in Hawaii and here amongst other boards. And that you have that combination of also having a Master of Public Health. And then when I went through the testimonies, just several things standing out, that you have significant experience in both local and global venues, the professionalism, as was mentioned, that you're committed to the people of Guam, that they've seen that you elevate our medical care for the community, and certainly that is something that the community needs and wants for itself. And then they call for your exemplary service, fairness, high standards in ethics, and cultural respect. And so each of those are really important qualities. So they're exactly the kind of things that we want to be hearing. And I too think that the Chairwoman asked really important questions that we needed to hear. Board members such as yourself that we're considering, you know, we need to understand how the board is moving forward. And so that progress is good. So you've been there for 2 years, you're looking for 4 years more. What would you consider, I guess, as your highest priority or something that you want to strive for that's been listed or discussed, or something additional that you see as a need for the board?
I think that's a really perceptive question, and thank you so much, Senator Kelly. I think definitely having the website up and running and functional, not just as a one-way website where information is given out to the community, but as a two-way communications platform where people can engage with the board while still maintaining safety protocols during the time of COVID is a priority that we have been focused on. And we truly want to get that up and running by the beginning of 2021. And it's our hope that we'll be able to do that. And I am working with the other board members on the content areas for that. And as soon as we get the contracts, that will be up. But I think very importantly, you really open the door to some of the key issues that we need to integrate into our board functions, and certainly having the sort of long-term human resource planning for healthcare, for our healthcare capacity, I think is going to be critical. And that is something that I would like to see done more proactively, which is something that's been highlighted by this year. We have really seen this year how important it is to be in a position where we have the necessary surge capacity for our healthcare workers. And we have certainly seen the gaps highlighted with this COVID pandemic. And I think that there's an opportunity here to be much more proactive in future proofing our healthcare system so that we do have the health resource capacity to enable us to meet any other emerging or new pandemics or healthcare threats that may arise in the future.
Therese Masi for that thoughtful answer. And I'm always pleased to hear that there's long-term planning going on. That's just so key to have that structure in place and be figuring out step by step how we're going to get towards our goals. So I really liked hearing that. And so are you feeling confident and satisfied with the progress that the board is making? I really want to commend the chairwoman for stepping in and working so closely with you all to make sure that those gaps and needs that have been long sitting and holding the board back are indeed now starting to be overcome. So are you satisfied, or do you think you need to press even harder as a board? How would you describe that?
I think a major factor for the progress has been the collaboration with the Office of Senator Therese. And truly, Senator, we appreciate the collaborative work with your staff and your office. I'm one of these people who wants everything done yesterday. So I think there's always room to keep pushing and pushing for more progress and faster efficiencies. I think it's just a good way to ensure that the community gets its value for the folks that they have put their trust in the board. So I know I will commit to that. And I have to say, it's been a very enlightening process this past year working with the board. I've learned a lot in the process. I also feel that I've been able to contribute despite being the youngest or the newest member to the board. But there's still a lot that we could do. And I certainly am one for pushing to have more and more progress as we go on.
Yes, so it sounds like there's still to overcome, but perhaps one of the qualities I like is that shared trait of wanting things done yesterday. So I like that you're going to press for more. So thanks for all of those answers. Therese Masi, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Taitigui.
Therese Masi. Hi, Dr. Annette. How are you?
Senator Tello, it's great to see you.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Always a pleasure. And I'm very happy that you decided to continue on staying on the board. We definitely need your expertise. Greatly appreciate it. And a lot of the questions were asked already that I had. but I did want to mention to you, I did your the Guam Community Health Assessment. I submitted it, and I sent it to my staff and asked them to as well to fill out the assessment survey. I know this is very helpful. Data is very key to moving forward and making decisions. So I wanted you to know I did do that assessment. There was a typo, by the way. It said off. It's supposed to be of, but it said off. You might want to check that later. But anyways, the website, I'm so happy that you mentioned the website. I always do this when I talk to people who are going on boards and commissions, to really provide that information that's needed. But you went a little bit further. It's more proactive and not just giving information, but where they can actually participate in certain things and studies too, just to put it out there and get the data. So I'm very happy about that. So thank you so much. And, I think it's an understatement to say that your resume was quite extensive. I've never seen one that so much data and information. You're a very busy woman, but just looking at the awards that you received, I know that you really, you do your very best. I mean, just all those awards was amazing. So there's no doubt in my mind that this position where it is difficult. There are a lot of controversy with the Guam Medical Board, and I know that you will be very fair and you have the compassion, because anybody else who can cook like you definitely has a good heart, And so I hope you have 5 more time to do cooking, and doing that, because your resume is you're very, very busy. I'm just rambling now. It's just so good to see you. I don't get to see you very much. So thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity. And of course you have my, not only my support, but my blessing as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator.
Senator San Agustin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. David, we spoke earlier before we went live on Zoom, and looking at your resume, I teased you about it, and you told me it's to keep you out of trouble. Well, you're in the heart of everything else, so may God bless you. And I understand, Madam Chair, that the reason why she only served 2 years was because it's just to finish off a term that wasn't finished. Am I correct?
It was to fill in a term where Dr. Joan Gill had left Island.
Okay. All right. Okay. And like I said, Dr. Annette, what's that? David? Is it David?
David.
David. Okay. Dr. David, I'm in full support of your appointment. And I say God bless you, and I hope for the best. And as you work with your oversight chair and you needed funding, don't fail to reach out. There's 15 of us. Reach out to every one of us and say, hey, do you got some money? So we can help you, because there's a lot of things you need to do. And the people of Guam are watching you just like they watch us. So as we try to help you and everybody else, there's only so much we can do. There's only so much you can do. And I like your attitude of you want to get it done yesterday. I'm retired military. Everything should have been done yesterday so we can move forward today. But, we move on from there. And thank you, Doc, for wanting to continue. May God bless you and the people of Guam for your willingness to continue. And you have a nice night, and you got my full support. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much for your support, Senator Joe. God bless you as well.
Thank you. Senator Moylan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. David, thank you for accepting the nomination and all your hard work. I'm looking forward to your suggestions. I like what you said. You have proactive ideas, and I hope, like my colleague has mentioned, please come to the legislature and let us know how we can assist, especially your committee chairperson, because the hospital is and the doctors especially is what we need to get us through this COVID situation. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to seeing your name on the session floor so I can raise my hand. Okay, so congratulations. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator.
Thank you, Senator. Dr. David, could you just clarify whether the board has reviewed any peer evaluations while you've been on the board?
When you
There-
say peer evaluations, you mean of physicians who are already in practice, Senator? Yes. We are currently in the process of reviewing a couple of those cases, and I think it's truly very enlightening because again you can see that they fall into two kinds. One is technical expertise, and that's a little bit more straightforward because the clinical practice guidelines are pretty well established, and that one is a little bit more straightforward. But then you also have an entire set that fall under the realm of professional conduct and ethical conduct, and that can be a little bit more complicated and requires a lot of careful and deliberate thought and objectivity.
All right. So in addition to complaints that can be received by pretty much anyone, peer reviews are supposed to be submitted. If there were any peer reviews done, for example, at the hospital or different facilities, those just are supposed to be forwarded also to the board and then reviewed. But so that's why I wanted to follow up on that. And all right. Well, I appreciate your testimony and your focus on taking care of the patients of Guam first, and also your future proofing of the healthcare for our island, and of course your focus on this systematic and prompt processes and improvements. So I very much appreciate that, and thank you again for your willingness to serve on this board. There is no further testimony, so we will consider the appointment of Dr. Annette M. David to serve as a member of the Guam Board of Medical Examiners duly heard. The time is now 6 p.m. Thank you, Dr. David.
Thank you so much to all of you. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. Take care. All right, we'll move on to the second agenda item, which is Bill number 425-35 COR. I will let the sponsor. This bill was introduced by Senator Joe San Augustine, Speaker Tina Munoz-Barnes, and Senator Jose Peter Terlaje. I will let the sponsor of the bill introduce the bill. Senator San Augustine, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Bill 425. Just let me know if I come in not too loud or anything, okay? Because I'm wondering if my connection is unstable here. Bill 425-35, an act to amend section 75122 of Chapter 75 of Title 21, Guam Code Annotated, relative to the designation of available Tomorrowland trust property and lease agreements, stipulation for commercial lease. Madam Chair, Bill 425-35 was introduced after hearing from community stakeholders and businesses who have made it their life work in building capacity for their industry on Guam. Not too long ago, the Cltc was entertaining an application submitted by a long-standing private enterprise to lease property for the improvement of telecommunications services here on Guam. After meeting and discussion, the Cltc was prepared to begin negotiations on the licensee, only to be informed that negotiation must cease due to Public Law 33-95 that required any public lands available for commercial lease must be put out for commercial bid. For the aforementioned business, this created a barrier to the improvement of their business. Ultimately, the service they provided our people are requiring the lands be placed for competitive bid where there's only one interest, and no competition may cause the stalling of business on Guam that will ultimately affect hundreds, if not thousands, of jobs. When will Cltc put up commercial leases for bid? They may never want to increase their commercial lease opportunities. Guam law is showing once again how business unfriendly we are. By removing the provision that requires the Cltc to put commercial leases up for bid, we are opening doors to commerce and building our economy. Removing this provision will allow the duly confirmed Tomorrowland Trust Commission Board of Commissioners to exercise their duty in ensuring the best outcomes for the people when issuing and negotiating leases for Cltc programs. We should allow these commissioners to do best by our people, tackling the various programs they execute and give them the tools that will help them do their jobs as best as they can. By passing this bill, we can be helpful to the business who pay their share of taxes for our government's use to continue to do just that while keeping our island residents employed. I look forward to hearing hopefully good testimonies tonight on the measure and ask my colleagues for their support. Jesus Masi, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator San Augustine. We will now hear from those who have signed up to testify. We'll begin with the Chairperson of the Tomorrowland Trust Commission, Mr. John Regis.
Good evening. Buenas and half a day, Madam Chair, Honorable Senators, Gimina 35 na list Turanguahan, and everyone that has joined us this evening. My name is John Regis Jr. I'm a member of the Tomorrowland Trust Commission and serve as the chairperson. I'm here this evening to provide testimony on Bill number 425-35, an act to amend subsection 75-122 of Chapter 75 of Title 21, Guam Code Annotated, relative to the designation of available Tomorrowland Trust property and lease agreement stipulations for commercial lease. In its current form, I do not support this bill. However, I want to discuss my position on commercial leases and how I believe our beneficiaries benefit from smart, prudent leases. I will also provide recommendations or proposed amendments to this bill. In my confirmation hearing, the overarching message was the most important leases are residential and agricultural. Understandably, as the intent and mission of the trust to rectify the unjust taking of our Chamorro homelands, to ensure that our people, the beneficiaries of the trust, will have the ability to utilize the land and build a home or cultivate that land for themselves or for generations to come. It's our duty and responsibility, and one that I'm determined in my new capacity, to ensure we continue to progress the mission of the Tomorrowland Trust. Commercial leases are important to the trust. With all things, there are pros and cons, but I believe that the trust will benefit if the Tomorrowland Trust Commission is given the negotiating authority for commercial lease agreements. It will be managed with transparency and accountability with the legislature's oversight. With the elimination of competitive bidding, there will still be appropriate control measures in place, and the process does not change in designation of properties available for lease, board resolutions, public hearings, and surveying, etc. I do, however, come with a proposal for the amendments for this bill. In subsection 75-122, section C number 4, it's labeled posting of awards. The following amendments would be change posting of awards to publication and add A, review and discussion. Any and all reviews and discussions pertaining to the potential use of CLTC property for commercial purposes must be posted on the Department of Land Management, GIDA, and CLTC websites for a period of 30 days from the date of post prior to any reviews or discussion. Item B, awards. All awards of a commercial lease and license shall be posted within 5 working days from the date of the award on the CLT on the Tomorrowland Trust Commission and Department of Land Management websites for 30 days. Number 2, subsection 75-122, section C, number 3, to add, CLTC shall accept any unsolicited proposals during the 30-day period of posting under subsection 75-122 C4A, as proposed or stated earlier in my amendment as an amendment. This allows for controls to be put in place with proper oversight and transparency. The inclusion of and lastly, the inclusion of a section that exempts CLTC commercial leases and licenses from Title 21, Chapter 60, subsection 60112 and 60114, and Title 5, Chapter 5, subsection 5351. In addition, one of the tasks of the agency has been taken upon themselves is to create SOPs for the commercial lease and license process. It's currently in draft form and is being reviewed based on the current laws as it stands, and of course, any will be amended as any other legislation passed. It's, in essence, is a living, breathing document. Lastly, as I've stated, there has to be a balance of commercial leases infused into the trust. It is important not only to generate revenues for the trust, but most importantly, the benefits for the trustees. It will assist in surveying of lands prior to deeming it available for lease so that we can supplement or eliminate the cost to the lessee. It will also help fund or make available necessary infrastructure for these lands to be habitable for both the residential and agricultural leases prior to the issuance of the lease. And lastly, it will expand our compliance leg, which is a critical component of the trust. And this is a function that is a little lacking today within the agency. I'd like to thank you for your time and Sidus Maasi for allowing me the opportunity to speak on this bill.
Thank you, Chairperson Regis. We'll now hear from the Administrator of GIDA, Ms. Melanie Mendiola.
Happy and good evening, Senator Terlaje and members of the Committee on Health, Tourism, Historic Preservation, Land and Justice, and thank you for allowing the Guam Economic Development Authority to present on Bill 425-35. My name is Mel Mendiola. I'm the Administrator and CEO here at GIDA. GIDA acknowledges the need to diversify and expand Guam's economic base. As such, we generally support legislative efforts that will encourage economic diversification by increasing efficiencies in the processes through which the government of Guam issues leases and licenses for government-owned commercial real property. GIDA and the Tomorrowland Trust Commission have a long-standing intergovernmental relationship with regard to commercial real property. If the CLTC believes that Bill 425 will generally assist them in meeting their mandates with regard to commercial real property in their inventory, then GIDA supports them in this regard. That's about all I have, although I am here available for questions on anything dealing with GIDA and CLTC leases. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, you can of course contact me at GIDA.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mendiola. We'll now hear from, we have Mr. Dan Tidinko. Dan.
Good evening, Madam Chair and committee members. Boy, you guys are burning the oil, I guess, even during the pandemic. So, which is good to know. You guys are not recognized as such by many for working so hard, but nonetheless, I appreciate the good work. I want to thank the authors of the legislation, Senator San Augustine and Speaker Barnes and Senator Terlaje, as well as the chairwoman for having the hearing this evening on this legislation. I socialized this particular matter with several of you guys over the course of the last few months. And we had been endeavoring to work with the Tomorrowland Trust Commission since January of this year, almost 12 months ago, to negotiate a submerged lands license agreement for building and rendering additional critical and essential telecommunications infrastructure, similar to what we had done with the government in PD a few short years ago. The law permits 21-year agreements with utilities such as ours. And this is to add on to the vitally necessary infrastructure which our community needs to ensure economic growth and activity, particularly given that existing submarine cable infrastructure presently on island is either aging or will be decommissioned in the coming years. There is a shelf life to these cables, so somebody's got to keep an eye out on making sure that we have that infrastructure to ensure our people are able to communicate with one another socially, and also to generate economic activity for the benefit of the economy as a whole. And out of those cables right now, the shelf life typically is between 20 to 25 years. We have 3 cables right now that are 23 years old, 19 years old, 18 years old, and they're coming to end of life. Out of the 11 cables, 6 are halfway to their lifespan. So, you know, we're trying to come in to make sure that we provide that infrastructure that's critical and necessary. We have obligations as designated by both the FCC and the PUC as being designated as the carrier of last resort, and also the incumbent local exchange carrier for the community. And we have obligations to ensure that those communications are provided to the community. However, that requires us to provide the infrastructure. And of course, we've been seeking to come back to the government vis-a-vis the Tomorrowland Trust again, similar to what we had done in PD, to make sure that we have that available submerged lands for possible negotiation to put up the additional cable infrastructure that's needed to traverse telecom back and forth, east and west, north and south for the capacity. I mean, just by virtue of us having this hearing electronically and virtually, that's the capacity that's brought in to be able to have this stuff streamed, not just locally, but also anywhere in the corner of the world and stuff with that capacity. Globally, there are about 420 submarine cables in service. They're primarily amassed in economy hotspots like Singapore and New York. And we need this economy for ourselves to keep in touch with one another, from Zoom to Netflix to Facebook and Google to telemedicine to distance learning, which I think the Department of Education is going to be standing up fairly shortly here in tandem with the Office of the Governor. We need to ensure that we have the capacity to remain in touch and competitive. I just want to add on a few more notes here. Again, just reiterating, we had gone to the commission earlier this year. We had previously worked with then Chairwoman Pika Farron with the Tomorrowland Trust Commission to work out the submerged license agreement with PD. We were marching towards it again this year. She had some quorum issues. The Tomorrowland Trust Commission had some quorum issues to move things forward. And then the legal counsel said, well, there's some handcuffs and restrictions that have been posed upon the Cltc to move forward with this. So I guess, coming back to the legislation, the good Senator San Augustine is advancing this thing to enable the commission to consider negotiating with us. And by no stretch of the imagination, even if we do sit down and negotiate with the Tomorrowland Trust Commission, we'll be far from moving forward with any particular projects, because there's a number of moving parts that we still have to contend with, whether it's the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, the Army Corps of Engineers, the Territorial Seashore Commission, other regulatory entities like the State Historic Preservation Office, the Guam Land Use Commission, EPA, etc. So we're looking towards working with all the science and the environmental engineering to make sure that this is feasible for the community, of course. And then outside of the government, once we do get the cables on shore, then we would be negotiating, of course, with private property landowners who are on shore. A number of them are already excited. We've had preliminary discussions with them. And they're looking forward to seeing this particular project come to fruition for not just the benefit of the community, but also possibly for the benefit of them to be able to make good use of their properties for lease income, long-term lease income and stuff. So we're the largest paying lessee to the Tomorrowland Trust Commission. We've been in that position, I think, for 15 years. We understand the obligations that are required of us. As a community partner, we've been here for over 60 years. Our infrastructure just has to continue to be built up. And it's not an easy endeavor to have 457 employees to keep working for the benefit of the community and, of course, for the benefit of themselves. So we're asking that the legislature favorably consider this legislation with some of the modifications that the good chairman that you guys just recently confirmed. I'm sure that we'll probably be able to sit down and talk with the Tomorrowland Trust Commission for this project. So we look forward to hearing back from the committee fairly shortly, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tadinko. Before we move to the next speaker, could you just please clarify when you said that you were told from the legal counsel at the Tomorrowland Trust that there were handcuffs? What do you mean by handcuffs?
I think that the law changed subsequent to when we had worked out the license agreement in PD about 3 or 4 years ago. I'm not sure specifically what he was referring to. He was suggesting that, look, we're not going to be able to give you guys a long-term license agreement similar to what we had done down in PD, like the 21-year agreement, because the legislature had put in some ceilings there with regards to their ability to do long-term license and commercial license agreements. And we said, okay, fine. You know, if we have to go back to the legislature, and if it has to go back to the legislature to authorize the Land Trust Commission to proceed forth with this with clarity, then so be it. I think that's what he was primarily referring to.
All right.
We couldn't, you know, because the investment would be significant, and the cable shelf life is at least 20 years, right? So, you know, you can add on some electronics to stretch out the life of that to maybe 25 years. We could not risk going back and saying we're only going to get a 5-year lease agreement. We wanted to get some clarity on that, similar to what's been done previously.
So is that the handcuff that you were told? I mean, is there something specific that he told you? That's why I want to make sure that if this bill is intended to remedy your situation, what exactly was the problem? Yeah, is it the term of the lease?
Yeah, I think it was the term of the lease, because he was suggesting, after we had already met on two occasions prior with the chairwoman, then chairwoman, and also the commission, that in the third meeting, he says, look, we're just not able to get a long-term agreement with you guys for more than 5 years. That was his interpretation.
All right. Okay. Thank you. So we have one more person. That's Attorney Mike Phillips. You're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening and buenas noches to everybody, senators and of course those testifying. I support this project, and listening to sponsor Senator San Augustine, I think he made some good points. My concern, and actually I'll summarize my proposal first and then give a few points that I hope support it. I would suggest, Madam Chair and senators, that this be a standalone bill for the purposes elaborated on and explained much better than I could ever by Senator San Augustine. The need for telecommunications, the ongoing discussions. Mr. Taidinco explained further everything that was going on. I think we're talking about a single project here. My concern, and I share the concerns, and real happy to hear the position of the chair of the Tomorrowland Trust, is that that type of work, that type of bill, that type of restructuring, I think will take a lot more than number one is needed here, and really a lot more than either Senator San Augustine or the chair proposed, quite frankly. I had it's not the benefit, I had the unfortunate experience of defending, prosecuting to some extent, the YTK case and the incinerator case. Those are two of a few, but probably the two most well-known cases where you kind of had government go haywire. And a lot of people don't know, and you know, Senator Terlaje, better than most, the assistance that the legislature had to provide in order for us to prevail on YTK and in order for us to prevail in the incinerator case. In fact, it was the late Senator Ben Pangilinan who had to sue himself. And so while I was representing him, I was involved. It was actually Senator Ben that had to challenge the incinerator contract that the government went ahead and entered into. And of course, what they do, and it's the MO, is big developers and politicians with clout will come down on a commission, sometimes an individual chair, and that's a lot of weight. And with all due respect to the current chair, and with due respect, of course, to Senator San Augustine, you don't know what it feels like when that happens. And I don't believe that individuals such as themselves would have the difficulty maybe that others have had. But what I think is proper is that when we're going to give a commission this kind of power, that they come before you and you look them in the eye and you ask them those hard questions. You're going to get a call from the governor. Who's kidding who? You're going to get a call from somebody from the Chamber of Commerce. You're going to have 13 people calling you a night. Can you deal with it? And a lot of people will say, hey, I'm here to lease Tomorrow Homelands. I'm not here to be the manager of Century 21. And so there's a real difference between putting people in a position where they're going to be negotiating bonds. They're going to be dealing with developers. They're going to be dealing with Dan and people like that on 3 times a day, as opposed to every now and then. And I think that's really what the current commission was put there for. The chair said it right. Their job is to lease Tomorrow Homelands for residential purposes. And after that, then they can consider that. And so rather than waiting, I think that the legislature really needs to work with that. So you either, one, have people in there that have that skill set, or two, you remove that burden from them if you want to do that. And I really think now, Senator, it needs to be addressed, because with all the good intent of everybody with regard to the Tomorrowland Trust, there's really nothing different from 1995. Here we are 25 years later. They're trying to find a piece of property to lease. Their interest is making money to survey. And at this rate, we'll all be gone. I mean, the Tomorrows will all be gone by the time that they're able to lease land to even just the majority of the people that have applied. And that can't go on anymore. There's no more impediment at all to the fully funding of the Tomorrowland Trust. It needs to be fully funded. It's urgent. And so at this point in time, I don't think you should saddle the commission with trying to find a piece of property here or there to lease out, maybe to raise some money, to maybe survey, 10 or 100 lots and get out another 100. Can't do that anymore. It's a much bigger picture. I think this legislature is capable of handling that. I think that the chair of the commission's able to handle that, but I don't think that anybody in a commission of that sort can be saddled with that project and then told, by the way, you need to get out 100 lots a day if you're going to do it before the 2 more people die off, because that's the reality of life. And so I suggest strongly that this bill, this intent be supported, but it be a standalone. And so we don't need to give the commission all the power to do everything that after they finish with this, they can keep going and doing the same thing without those very serious checks and balances. I think the chair of the commission has great ideas. I think those and probably more need to be put in. I'm sure when this comes up, there'll be other concerns that are raised by you there, senators, and those with experience. I don't want to penalize the current project because this need to be done. So I would just ask that they not go any further than this project. So do what it takes to allow the commission to continue its negotiations with what appears to be a project that was going through. But for these concerns, make sure it's fair, where everybody's satisfied that it is in fact as reported something that's positive. That's the way it sounds to me. But of course, I believe that the legislature needs to be satisfied. But move along with that, and then let's address the bigger picture of what needs to be put in place to either A, somebody handle that and not saddle the commission with that, or B, if you are going to saddle that responsibility still with the commission, do something to move it along, because there's no way in the world that if you're going to keep requiring them to raise all the money they need in order to move forward, that we're ever going to have the Tomorrow Homelands lease to the beneficiaries. And if there's any questions, Madam Chair, I'm here. Otherwise, that really is the extent of my testimony. I really appreciate everybody's patience.
Thank you very much, Attorney Phillips. So as a sponsor of the bill, Senator San Agustin, you may begin.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I was just curious how Mr. Ray just brought up that you're kind of you're not really in support of the bill the way it's written, and then I'm hearing from Attorney Phillips that it should be standalone. Would you recommend that we? I mean, I want to find a way to raise some funds for Tomorrowland Trust, so you can go and lease property out for residential reasons and for agricultural. But because after I read the Madam Chair, after I read the BBMR note, it said, in the last paragraph, should the proposed legislation become law, there's the potential that Tomorrowland Trust may be able to engage in more commercial leases. I was just, what this intent of this bill was, and if I can get a copy of what you recommended, Mr. Reyes' proposal, we can see how we can tweak it so we can put it in the bill and we make it work for your benefit. I mean, not your benefit, but Tomorrowland Trust benefit. Because Attorney Phillips is correct. You know, Tomorrowland Trust is supposed to be giving out residential lots and agricultural lots, and we were just trying to figure out a way to make sure that the commercial industry, such as GTA, Docomo, ITN, and everybody else that need to get leases, are not competing with everybody else in the world when it's just them. You know, Docomo needs to get a lot. It shouldn't be open to everybody else to compete for the lot they're trying to get where they need to put their business. And that was all this bill was intended, was to allow you the flexibility with the Tomorrowland Trust to do this. And that's really all I have, Madam Chair. And once we can get his, and we can sit down with the testimony provided, and then we can tweak the bill so we can make it work for the people of Guam. That's all it is. I'm not looking at turning Tomorrowland Trust into a commercial industry. No, but you do have lots that can be available to the industry, and to not allow it to pursue is not right. It's going to strangle. It's going to you're going to stagnate the economy, and we want to help you. I honestly want to help Tomorrowland Trust because I'm still waiting for mine. So you know, and there's many others also. And that was in '95 I signed up. So Mr. Reyes, just to let you know, I signed up in '95 and I still haven't got anything, but that's okay. I'm a very patient guy. All right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Sinatra. All right. I have a couple questions also, if I'll just get straight to them. Well, first, yeah, so there's been talk, I guess, about a particular license or lease with GTA for submerged lands and maybe in PD. But, and then the chair said, you know, there's only one interest in that property. The issue for me is that, yeah, this bill is to change the law for all prospective commercial leases. And so I just want to make it as, you know, of course, to resolve the problem that we really have at hand if necessary, or whatever problems we have at hand. Now, I know what we're trying to balance here is there's a huge shift in this law. I think it was, well, I don't know when it was done. I don't think it was too long ago when they changed the law that requires that commercial lease revenue be credited to the Tomorrowland Trust Survey and Infrastructure Fund until 2020, and then to the Tomorrow Home Loan Fund. Now, this bill would change that, and it would make the proceeds go now after 2020 to Tomorrow Home Loan Fund and the Tomorrowland Trust operations. So I guess that's my concern. First is operations. I guess I'll ask this to the Tomorrowland Trust Chair. I understand you need operations money, you know. Yeah, so we're splitting now what commercial proceeds we're going to be bringing in for the home loan fund or for the trust survey and infrastructure funds, and putting it into operations. So I just see it to be a diversion away from really what a lot of you have talked about as, you know, the goal of this money. Yeah, do you have any comment on that part of this bill, Mr. Chair?
So in speaking with the team, right, there was additional information that was provided as far as why we were switching to those accounts. And I think, and I can get additional clarity, but it's my understanding that diverting the monies into the operations fund will still support, right, not only again the day-to-day operations in supporting our lessees, but also for the surveys that could potentially be done by the trust. So I'll get I can get additional information, but again, just from the conversations I've had in the past few weeks and getting up to speed and kind of understanding, you know, budget and funds and where funds are allocated, et cetera. And then now with the introduction of the bill, I can still get more information for you, Madam Chair.
Okay, so when I reviewed the budget request for FY19, it was 1,042,000, and they were appropriated 1,027,000 some, a difference of 14,214. That was a little bit less than the 1,038,000 appropriated in FY18. But in FY20, the appropriation was 1,047,000, which is a little bit more than those prior fiscal years. And we had also removed attorney's fees. So yeah, operations, I'm hoping, you know, I know you spelled out what you need. You need more enforcement officers, things like that. But yeah, I just hate to see the operations side of this grow so big that we can't put any money towards, survey, which is very critical, infrastructure critical. You said that too, and the home loan fund. So that's my concern with this. The other one is that the FY19 audit was pointing out some things regarding these leases, and during the year ended September 30, 2019, the Cltc collected annual commercial rent fees without a formal signed lease, and thus the auditor was able to determine completeness of related terms and conditions. Additionally, upon the 5-year renewal of commercial leases, the lease rents are to be adjusted to a certain percentage of the fair market value, excluding improvements. Audit notes that the Cltc failed to provide an appraisal or equivalent to substantiate the market value of the leased lands. Thus, current rental fees remain the same rate as per the initial lease. What I'm trying to point out is that I'm not sure if the commission has fully maxed its potential for income from the existing leases as per this audit. And I just want to make sure if that could please be done, then, you know, that's at least, we can shore up those sources. And all right, and so now as to the Cltc lease with GTA, I guess I'm feeling a little awkward whether that's what I'm supposed to be talking about here versus this bill. I wish, you know, if that was the matter that we are going to discuss, that, then we have all that information and we discuss that particular matter. But let me ask, when it was said that, you know, for some properties, there's only one interest. So that is the reason why this bill would be taking it out of, you know, any competitive kind of bidding or solicitation. And I guess, you know, I'm concerned about that. So instead of saying, here, we have one property, this is what you normally do at Tomorrowland Trust. You say, I have this one property, here's where it is. Anyone who wants to lease it, please come and give us your best offers, right? And then you, Tomorrowland Trust, are able to negotiate and get the best deal, best value, or whatever you want from that. When they say there's only one interest, and it doesn't really, I guess I take it back, Mr. Chair, because you did recommend some changes to this bill that would restore that competitive process. Is that correct?
Yes, in an effort to restore the competitive bid process, there's a section there that will allow, once the land has been deemed available for lease, and then it goes through the process, unsolicited or solicited, and then it is then sent out from a notification standpoint, in publication of, you know, this is the land available for lease. So yes, that'll help, right, in the sense of creating the awareness of what is the land that is to be leased.
Okay, and that's very much more similar to the existing process where, everybody should know which lands are available and be able to, you know, give you an offer, I guess, on it. All right.
And so, Madam Chair, just in an effort to also bring light, right, to it's not just submerged lands leases. In my opinion, it's all commercial leases, right? And if the law allows for 9% of available lands to be allocated to commercial leases, and it's definitely something that we want to capitalize in the sense of, again, right, for the benefit of the benefit of the beneficiaries. And I do appreciate Attorney Phillips's sentiments, in the sense that we should no longer have to not be funded to be able to provide these leases for those that are on the list, that have been on. I've started to kind of get additional understanding on what are the low-hanging fruit out there, right, in regards to residential leases. And I know that's not the intent and purpose of today, but those are some of the things that with the even if it may be further down the line, but that's our goal. Our goal is to obviously ensure that these residential leases are managed and given to the beneficiaries, but ensuring also that it's habitable, that there's infrastructure, that there's and that's going to come at a cost, and if we're not necessarily funded in that sense, then the funding has to come from somewhere. So that's just my add that in there.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so yeah, that was one of my concerns, was the bill strikes out the language that says unsolicited proposals must subsequently be done through competitive solicitation, and it strikes out awarded that for all leases, that they will be awarded through a competitive bid process. Now, I can understand that maybe there are exceptions and that might not need this process, and I think we might need to flesh that out a little bit more. How would we describe those exceptions? But for the most part, yeah, normally we get better value when it's competitive. And then there's another provision here that maybe CEO Mendiola, if you could help me with this. So there's a whole section 6 on page 4 that's going to be struck out, that says that any solicitation for interest or proposals prior to the enactment of this act, which was done in the past, for commercial activity on CLTC land with the intent of entering into a commercial lease shall be null and void. So that was already adopted. Now this bill would be striking that out. Does that mean that leases that we've declared null and void or proposals, I don't know what they were, interests or proposals that were declared null and void, are now going to be coming back to life? Because the one I'm thinking about was, of course, the one that we were in a lawsuit under, I think it was with Guam Rocks for that Lahuna, they called it Lahuna property or Lahuna development up there on, next to the racetrack or up around there. So I wanted to know, Gita was handling that lawsuit several years ago. Maybe if you could tell us the status of that, or if there are other cases that this provision might affect.
No, I don't believe we were handling that particular lawsuit. I think that is with the CLTC specifically. I don't think we handled the Lahuna or the Guam Rocks one that you're describing. The CLTC properties we have under memorandum of agreement are, there's a property across the street from GVB. There's one up in Gigo near the gym. There's Oka Point, and there's 2 others that escape me right now, but this was not one of them. I'm not sure what the intent of the author was in striking this out.
Okay. The other property, the one behind East West Rental, right? Yes, Mr. Regis. Chairperson Regis.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but Madam Chair, I missed the fact that we want to keep section 6, and I will make sure that that's included in my testimony. But yes, we do want to keep section 6. That was section 6 in the that was struck out. Just want to be clear.
Okay, I'm glad. Yeah, and if anyone knows of any other litigation that section might affect, please let me know. And if, Ms. Mendiola, if you could just double check, please, with Gita, the status. of that lawsuit. I pretty much believe it was there last, so it might be lost. And Mr. Rages, please, yeah, also check that. Okay, and then just a couple more. One was about right now, commercial leases that CLTC enters into, they give a portion of their proceeds to GITA as fees for managing these leases. What is that percentage? For example, for FY21, what would that amount be? Do we know for the current?
Yes, it's 14. GITA's arrangement is 14% of zero, so zero.
Because there are 0 leases right now that you are managing?
No, that's there were 5 designated. So there were 5 properties designated by the CLTC for GITA to manage. Well, if I may, Senator, let me just make a quick statement on this. This is something, the leasing of CLTC property, and in addition, we also work with the Guam Ancestral Lands Commission. In working with CLTC, the board of the CLTC is the one that gives us the direction as far as where to go and what they'd like to do. And so upon entering the MOA, if you recall, that was right around the time that they were really ironing out that the CLTC under the prior chair were ironing out the SOPs with regard to residential leases. They were also dealing with the lawsuit. And so given that this was not a priority for them, and so it rarely appeared on the agenda. And then with the recent turnover of a number of the board members, they didn't have quorum, so that also delayed the process of doing anything. There were 2 properties. One was across from GVB, and one was up near GIGO, near the GIGO gym, that the CLTC did designate for us to put out an, I believe it was an RFP. We received no interest on either one. And the main piece of feedback we consistently get, whether it's CLTC land or other land that we are attempting to go out and lease, GITA land or whatever, it's the impediment of the 5-year law. And the 5-year law is something that I think was enacted in 2013. Since then, our peers, our neighbors, the North Marianas, they have generated something like $2.9 million, $2.4 million in long-term lease revenue. And they recently increased their term from 25 years to 40 years with the possibility to extend another 15 up to 55. Now, this 5-year law makes Guam non-competitive from the perspective of commercial leasing, at least on the government side of the house. If you never want to lease out government land, then you're good. Then this is really a good thing. What the 5-year law is a good thing. But if you if there's an expectation for revenue generation, and in the case of Tomorrowland Trust, especially when it's going to things like infrastructure, building, bringing in infrastructure to Tomorrowland Trust lots, building roads and things along those lines, there has to be a viable form of revenue. Whether that revenue comes via GITA or directly to the CLTC via a licensing agreement, such as what might be described in this proposed legislation. I think that's, I mean, from the perspective of CLTC and from the perspective of the chair, I think that would be a good thing. As far as when GITA gets involved, it's only as requested. So when they think that when the CLTC board believes that GITA might somehow add value, then they designate a property and we work on that property. If for some reason they don't believe that GITA adds value to one deal or another, or if they'd like to pursue doing this on their own, or if they'd like to take over the process entirely, that's entirely up to them. They don't have to, they can cancel the MOA and they can move on. Where GITA has added value to other agencies, including the Guam Ancestral, is we've helped Guam Ancestral with lease negotiations. We've helped them with management. As you know, CLTC, the size of CLTC, the size of GALC is very small. And so when the number of people and the amount of resources you have are working with residential lessees, they don't necessarily have time to spend on commercial. And with GALC, it's just the size of the agency alone. It was why they brought us in. GALC has managed to take, they managed to get about over $1 million, 1.4, $1.5 million annually in lease revenue. I mean, this is something CLTC can follow if approached properly and prudently. And I think Chairman Regis is the best guy for that job. And so, yeah.
All right, thank you. That's why I'm asking, yeah, what is the amount? So Mr. Regis, is there any amount that goes to GITA during this fiscal year for their participation in lease management on past leases? No?
No.
Okay, so only if they lease out the ones that they are holding right now. Okay.
That is their administration.
Okay. And okay, so Mr. Tedinko, can I ask you, when you're talking about your discussions with the commission regarding PD or the other properties, because you've talked to them about a Lupang, I think, and another agate, and okay, and all very similar, right? Submerged cables. You want to get an easement to go through the submerged lands that have been transferred to Tomorrowland Trust, right?
That's right. But specifically with regards to PD, PD's done. PD was done a few years ago.
Yeah.
Remember,
I
you had
participated in that. Yes.
You had a participatory role in PD for the terrestrial lands when we negotiated, when you authorized the PD Municipal Planning Council to have us lease where their basketball court was, and we construct another one for them, and then of course give them fair market value lease for the property, right? So, but yes, we're looking at, we've had discussions. We've already had discussions primarily with the Army Corps and NOAA to try and figure out where's the most suitable place to bring in submerged cables again to land on Guam with the least amount of environmental disruption and stuff. And they pointed us into two particular directions and stuff. And but PD's done. But you referenced a Lupang and you referenced agate. You're correct in that regard.
Okay, so I'm not, super familiar with the industry. So would you describe it as there being no other interest in the property? It's not something that other competitors would be interested in at the same time?
We went through, we went to the Tomorrowland Trust Commission like we did a few years ago with PD, and we went to them again just recently again. I don't think there's anybody else that's come before the Tomorrowland Trust Commission for submerged lands. It's not as if people are interested in minerals mining or anything like that with the submerged lands. We're just looking for a small swath and corridor, probably about, I think it's, I'm gonna say 8 or 10 foot wide corridor from the reef flat onto the private properties on the beach side,
right,
where we negotiate. And those cables, of course, are coming in to connect us with the world, either east, west, north, south, et cetera, for the connectivity that's just needed. I mean, I don't know if that, hopefully that answers your question.
Okay, so yeah, well, I'm just trying to determine, is there any other competitor in this process that, CLTC should be looking at or not? And if that's the reason we're taking it out of the process, or if we allowed it to go through a competitive type process, just announce it and say anyone who wants this to lease this easement over submerged lands.
That's a fair question. So if you look at the existing statute, I mean, it spells out that the CLTC is authorized to go ahead and work with public utility companies or corporations in the telecommunications, with regards to telecommunications and stuff. I don't know if any other competitors are out there, any other telecom providers are going to endeavor to do this and work in this particular space. I know another telecom provider has just announced that they're going to go into the arena of SAT communications, satellite communications. That's a different ball game, with regards to providing telecom here on Guam or anywhere else. Satellite communications is more expensive as far as laying down or providing the telecommunications. I'll give you a good example. Palau, the Republic of Palau, when they found out that we were doing our cable down in PD, the CUS cable, they were very excited. So I think they worked with either the World Bank or Asian Development Bank. And we got the assistance to be able to take down their satellite communications, which was cost prohibitive for the majority of people that were either residents or businesses doing just in Palau. And they attached what was called a branching unit and a spur over to the cable that we brought into Guam for them to be able to get in on that capacity. And again, 90 odd percent, I'm going to say 92 to 95% of the world's telecom is all submerged cables and stuff. We just have the good fortune out of the 420 odd that are presently in the water right now. I think we have 11 that traverse in and out, but half of those again are either half-life or coming to end of life. And there's just the need to ensure that that connectivity exists out there and remains for us, right? But I can't speak, if you're asking me, Senator, if there's anybody else out there, I don't know. We came to the commission back in January, noting that, okay, we have to do this. And one of the other things is just making sure that we have the grant and the authority with the government, namely the Tomorrowland Land Trust Commission, as the custodian of those submerged lands, to be able to do this stuff. Again, we understand the responsibilities. We're the largest paying lessee to the Tomorrowland Land Trust. I heard you citing, I think $1 million or a little over $1 million for the Tomorrowland Land Trust operations. I don't know where our monies go. I think we probably furnished about half of that $1 million with the leases that we have presently, and we're locked in for another 35 years. You guys had mandated this under the asset purchase agreement when GTA was privatized back in 2005. I think it was Senator Ben Pangilinan that worked on this.
All right. I'm just also trying to clarify, the GITA director referred to an impediment of 5 years, and but you said, when I asked you about what were the handcuffs, you weren't very clear that was the handcuffed. And I guess I want to ask CLTC, GITA, all of you, if you've got any kind of legal interpretation as to that impediment, if you could share that with us as well. I'm gonna, because I think, Dan, it sounds like, I was at one meeting where that was kind of announced at the CLTC meeting, and I don't know if that caught you off guard, but so if that's in writing anywhere, I would like to see anything that any of you have in writing regarding that lease terms and the maximums, that type of thing, because we have many leases that exceed 5 years. I know that for a fact. All right, and so I'm going to open up to the panel. Senator Perez, you may proceed.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. So this question is for Dan. So you or even Attorney Phillips, regarding the recommendation to have a standalone bill for the underwater cable infrastructure. So I guess I'm trying to figure this out because, is there really a need to delete the sections where there's only one bidder? Because even if there is only one bidder, that could potentially be granted as long as specs are met. So I don't necessarily see the point in deleting out, making changing the law permanently to remove the competitiveness of a bid. So even if there is a bid that's sent out and only one bidder is received, that shouldn't preclude awarding of that bidder if it's just one person who responds to it. But I think there are questions. If this bill was created for that particular project, perhaps, there's already precedent set, with Senator Ada, with the PD lease, right? The PD lease, it was a standalone bill. And so I guess for Dan, why would this route preferable to that standalone bill that was created back in the 34th Guam legislature? What's the
Senator Perez, I applaud the efforts of the author, Senator San Agustin, to push forward the discussion for granting the latitude to the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. On the other hand, I understand some of the concerns here that He certainly didn't want the commission to be bootstrapped with having to do its primary charge of the residential leases and then be overwhelmed with trying to figure out complex commercial negotiations and stuff. We would appreciate that, you know, if the legislature wants to go forth with putting a specific authorization for GTA to go ahead and proceed forth. We've already made a representations since January of this year in public with the commission, and we'd like to see our ability to sit down and negotiate and go forward with it. I mean, you know, we were under the impression that the commission could, but then I think that the hearing which Senator Terlaje just mentioned, I think it was back in, I'm going to say it was July or August and stuff, where we were just taken aback, like, we can't proceed forth. And we're like, well, you guys made all these representations that we're going to be able to do this. We came out with some very public information. Do the other competitors have all that information? Just to some extent they do, right? I mean, we put in vast sums of money and resources in already scoping out where we could potentially go and stuff. So, you know, in the interest of fairness, we would like to be able to be considered having brought this forth for the benefit of getting the infrastructure in place and augmented with whatever's retiring or being decommissioned in the coming years.
Okay, but as far as like the PD lease, that was a standalone bill, and this one would change Tomorrowland Trust and how they operate as far as commercial leases. You know, what is the difference in regards to how that affects a business, right? Is this gonna, you know, what is the difference in approach and what's the impact of that?
Well, our concern, Senator Perez, has always been the, you know, when we were notified back in July after the preceding representations by the Land Trust Commission when we're moving forward with them, was the limitation on 5 years. And there's no way that we could be able to proceed forth with an investment for the infrastructure that's needed here with the 5-year term. I mean, we have to at some point be able to recapture the investment that we've made. We've articulated, or we planned out that, yeah, we could probably do this in a 21-year, maybe perhaps to a 25-year agreement and stuff. But there's no way that we would make that investment for 5 years.
Okay, thank you. So in regards to appraisals, in the last bill, 370-34, it talked about appraisals. And I think what is the, you know, for me, land is a limited resource, and you know, the value is just going to go, it's just going to increase as demand increases, right? And especially with Guam. You know, as far as the appraisal process, you know, what is the, I'm sure there's SOPs in place, but
there's specialized appraisals for submerged lands, and you know, similar to what was done previously down in PD again. And I think Senator Terlaje actually just said, you guys choose the second, the highest of the two with regards to the fair market value appraisal of the properties. So we had the qualified appraisals come out, and we've undertaken those. Those are very complex appraisals, and the people that did this have had experience doing appraisals. I think they recently did it, if I'm not mistaken, down at the Port Authority, down at the PD Underwater Observatory, and other areas. So it's not as if they're without the experience to, and you know, they already bounced it off as well as with their peers in other jurisdictions as far as figuring out what is the best fair market value. Now, with regards to what we do, I think the senator, the good chairwoman noted that the public auditor was expressing concerns regarding the Tomorrowland Trust not capturing the revenue that it should be able or should be getting for fair market value. We have done that. I mean, we were mandated by the APA, our asset purchase agreement, when we entered into our long-term lease agreements with the Tomorrowland Trust, not only to have a very complex appraisal, but also with escalators. We have the escalators in there. I think we just started the, I think 8 or 10% escalation just this year with the Tomorrowland Trust for those underlying properties. Similarly, we do the same thing with the one we just did in PD, and for the terrestrial side, for that terrestrial property down there. So it's those appraisals that are by qualified appraisers who have experience in doing that for these types of projects and stuff.
Okay. Yeah, so you know, as you know, sometimes we have these really bad deals when it comes to land. You know, we have these 100-year leases, and you know, oftentimes the value just really skyrockets, and the inflation, it doesn't really match with the inflation. So is this appraisal process going to be robust to kind of address some of these inflationary issues? And
yeah, the escalators are in there, Senator. Those are historical escalators that are determined by the appraisals and the appraisers in conjunction with real estate professionals out there, and then bouncing that information off of people who are involved in the industry as well.
If I may, the current commercial lease law for Tomorrowland Trust also includes, how it's going to escalate. They have
Right.
minimum escalation.
Right, I think it's 8 or 10%, Senator. You're correct.
okay. Okay, I think that's it for me. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Marsh Taitano.
Saina Mahasi, Madam Chair. And so I appreciate everybody's perspective. It's been really important to listen to. And, the first thing that came to my mind is, as we all know, we just went through this with several public hearings and just voting to improve Cltc so it's better living up to its mandate, that it's about restorative justice and land restoration program. And it's just gotten past a very large hurdle, and we were all excited to hear that it's going to move forward aggressively. So looking at any potential lease agreement, at least for me, I'm very cautious. And I really like the way that the chair mentioned that, he's looking for balance, because that's a very large and significant mandate that the Tomorrowland Trust has. And it really seems to be between the residential leases and then what it takes to support those residential leases. And then that's where these commercial leases come in, at least in the way that I'm looking at that. And so I think we're having really important discussion about this legislation, and perhaps it needing to be just a standalone base, because I agree with Attorney Phillips that having this process come before the legislature, I think, is really important. Anything I've ever heard from anybody who's somebody eligible for the Tomorrowland Trust program has been about them being very concerned about commercial leases. And so I appreciate that the author of the bill was trying to solve an issue that came up. And so I agree with, I think, everybody really who's testified in one way or the other, is that there's a balance here between the solution he was seeking and the end goal that the author was working to get towards, and keeping in those cautionary measures. So I'm interested in understanding where we're at, because I think when we're looking at all of this, when we understand the potential impact of that 9%, it's important to understand the bigger picture. So perhaps I didn't have the time to look as thoroughly as I wanted to, but it seems to me that there's still a long ways to go with the residential leases. There is still quite a few thousands of acres to do for that, but we may be at a pretty high percentage of what's allowable for commercial leases. Does the chair or anyone else have those statistics about what percentage of acreage of land is still available for residential leases and what percentage is still available for commercial leases?
Senator, you broke up for the latter part of your question, if that was addressed to me. I only heard the chairperson, so I apologize. I didn't get the last part.
No, thank you for letting me know. So I'm wanting to know where we're at with the big picture. What percentage of land is still available for residential leases and what percentage is still available for commercial leases?
I don't have that off the top of my head. I do know that we've barely even reached a 9% cap, however, on the commercial side. But I can get some of those statistics from the agency, from the team. But I don't know that off the top of my head. Sorry.
Okay, and you know, I'm just afraid that my statistics are way too rough and dirty, that they might create a really bad misperception of where we're at. I mean, it seemed like to me from a very preliminary scan that the commercial lease that we may be, well, around 70%, which means that there's still another couple hundred or 300 or so acres to go. Yeah, so understanding that would be really helpful. And what is the annual income that is generated? So I understand it's gone through transitions and that this year is kind of setting it on a somewhat different course, but what kind of annual income or generation of revenues come into the CLTC?
Sorry, I don't know if it's my side. I'm not able to hear anything right now. If you guys can hear me.
Yeah, so I can hear you. It may be my internet. What are the annual CLTC revenues from commercial leases?
Oh, okay. Annual commercial leases currently, what are the revenues? Okay,
Yes.
sorry. Okay, sorry, I'm seeing heads nodding, but I don't hear anything.
Yes, that's correct. That's what she's asking. Yes.
Okay. I don't have that handy, but I think off the top of my head is 850,000 based on our leases and licenses.
We're about 500,000 of that.
Yeah, so I don't have the exact breakdown, but I believe it's 850,000 in leases and licenses. If I can recall correctly in my discussions with the team.
Okay, and so it's my understanding that, you know, we are still at the point where the majority are, the vast majority of applicants and eligible people are still waiting. As Senator Joe pointed out, he's been waiting for what, like 25 years. And so is there a study that helps us understand how many people are going forward? Because if we're talking about 9% of the available land, and there are more acres coming into play. I just want to, again, have that bigger picture, understand, and hopefully there's a study that is helping us understand how much we need for these residential leases, that we're not overstepping with the commercial leases and potentially leaving people out at the end. Is there any study that helps us understand the way forward, that as we're moving forward, we understand how many people are going to be eligible and that we will have land for them?
That's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head, but I did take note of that to see what the agency's assessment of the current inventory what is there outstanding or available to lease, right? I know that, again, as I'm starting to get my feet wet and really get into the details, right, that there's still a lot of assessments that need to be done on some of the lands. And assessments in the sense of just from, even just to understand whether it's habitable, whether there's, easements or things like that. So there's still a lot of land that has not even been assessed. So those are definitely some of the works that I want to dig into, right, to understand what's available. I think that's one of my first questions is, what is available? And I know that they're doing an inventory. They've started to do that, but I don't have those specifics with me today. But I know that that's some information that we can get.
Yeah, so oh, sorry.
If I could just, from the 2019 audit, it indicates that an updated land inventory of 11,668 acres, 3,000 acres unregistered. And as of 2019, they had leased 3,000 acres, which is, okay, so the remaining at that time of the 9% was 607 acres available, or that would take them to their max. But one thing I do remember, and this is just my memory, is that there are at least 8,000 applicants still waiting, at least 8,000, and that's from the 1995 list. That's not even from anybody past 1995, 8,000. And so the trusts in the past had been, alarmed that no, they do not have enough land for everyone for residential or agricultural leases. So they've been considering, drastic changes. For example, changing the amount of agricultural land that would be made available to lessees. That's a big change. You'll see some of these agriculture tracts are large in the past. They want to cut those down, and of course to do something more creative with the residential to accommodate more of these people. Thank you.
So it sounds like the numbers that I ran across are pretty close to the ones that you were mentioning, and so I think that's a real big concern, and I even wonder going forward if once you get more of the data, if the 9% will hold, if it ends up needing to be pushed back so that it's less land available for commercial lease and more for the agricultural and the residential. So I appreciate you letting me be able to talk about the big picture here, and I'm still weighing some of that out, but that was the direction I wanted to go in, and the more information we continue to get from the chair and others, and I'll continue looking into it, I think the more that it will help us all. So Seduce Masi, Madam Chair, and I'll let everyone move on.
Thank you. I know we've got all night, but we'll try not to. So next we'll hear from Senator Taitakui, Minority Leader.
Seduce Masi, Madam Chair, and I'll try and make it quick. The bill basically allows, it says it requires that income generated from Chamorro Land Trust commercial leases, which currently support Chamorro Land Trust Survey and Infrastructure Fund, also be used for Chamorro Home Loan Fund and the Chamorro Land Trust Operational Fund. Additionally, the bill allows for Chamorro Land Trust to lease properties for commercial purposes via negotiations executed by the agency instead of through competitive process. Now that's the bill in whole. And, John, I greatly appreciate, it looks like you've been doing a lot of studying, in your new position there, and a lot more to go. Greatly appreciate your testimony. And I think this is a good opportunity to answer a lot of our questions through your testimony once it's completed and provided to the chair on questions that you weren't able to ask. One of them, though, I have was, in the event, what happens, or how does the Tomorrowland Trust proceed in the event the agency receives only one bid through a competitive bid process? What's the current procedure?
So you mean the current procedures if we only receive one bid?
Yeah.
Man, I'm gonna probably not have all the steps. However, it's my understanding that after the bids has been received, it's open for 30 days. It goes through the negotiation process. And again, it's just one bid, right? So, and then I believe it also then goes through legal review, right? Based on those negotiations. And then an award is then officially officially communicated through a publication. And that's, I mean, to my extent of my knowledge, based on what I've been reading and discussing with the team.
Okay, so what protections will you have in place to ensure the commercial lease agreements that are a result of the negotiations rather than through a bid process represent the best interest in the Chamorro Trust beneficiaries and the government of Guam, and not special interests?
Yeah, you make a good point, Senator. It's definitely making sure that we understand, right? What are the revenues? Is there a projection? Because I mean, that's going to be the biggest thing, right? As everyone's mentioned, there's fair market value and things like that accelerate and increase over the years. So making sure that we do our due diligence in making sure that the proposal is sound. That, again, it's going to have to be beneficial. And what are we going to realize, right, over the years? Are we going to be able to project any blips in the radar as we are experiencing today, right? Where it's a blip for the negative, right? For the worse. How do we project that? How do we make sure that, are we awarding, whatever the terms are? And then outside of that, there are additional ways of getting revenue, right? And are we making sure that we capture all the ways that we can get revenue? Things like participatory revenues, right? For events. Right now there's a lot of additional revenues that can be generated when it comes to minerals, right? So it just depends on the lease. And it's going to depend on doing our due diligence for those revenue projections. That's going to be in the best interest of the trust. Also comparing, right? So there's going to be comparing to similar leases that have been put out there or that are in place for us to make sure that if we've seen any gaps in those previous leases that it's similar, right? We can solve for them, or we can account for them and make sure that they're included in those lease negotiations. So kind of off the top of my head, it's going to have to focus on revenue.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, thank you so much, John. I look forward to seeing your testimony and providing some additional information. Thank you, Attorney Phillips, for always being here, and I appreciate your comments as well. And Dan and Melanie, today we just finished putting in the third reading file for voting file, the fiber optic cable, submarine cable for voting, and it's ironic I see you two here this evening. I was trying to get a hold of you earlier, Melanie, but that's why I was wondering, we're talking about fiber optic cables when this bill basically is something else, but it goes further, I'm sure. But thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Look forward to you seeing the bill, Melanie. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. Just to clarify, earlier today, she's talking about a bill to create a task force to create a task force regarding the submerged industry. Yeah. All right. And so, Mr. Tedinko, did you have your hand up, or shall I proceed with Senator Moylan?
Yeah, I was just going to say, just to Senator Kelly Marsh at Titano's point regarding the 9%. I don't think that the 9% language ever contemplated submerged lands. I think that was all for the terrestrial inventory. So that's just a point to be made. You know, it's not as if the Tomorrowland Trust would be moving to lease submerged lands for residential leases or anything like that. I think that it's very unique with regards to, maybe they did, you know, there's, I don't know if it's in the entire inventory. That's something that the chairman should probably figure out.
All right, thank you. Okay, so Senator Moylan, thank you for waiting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question for Mr. Tydinko. We're discussing, in your point there, you're discussing submerged land.
That's
This
correct.
is swamp land, right? Is that what you're
Well,
saying?
it's not swampland. It would be inside the reef, into the reef flats. It's not necessarily swampland. I don't think the Tomorrowland Trust has the jurisdiction and authority over all submerged lands on Guam, with the exceptions of the one the military still possesses, right?
Okay, so after the, is this land available, or would you say this is land that homes can be built upon?
It's submerged. I don't know if somebody's going to build a submerged home.
Thank you. And then your cable, you were giving the description of the cable. It's how wide is this cable?
We would probably be looking at an 8 to 10 foot swath, width coming in from the reef flat onto the private properties and stuff.
Right. That you're gonna, when it comes down to the private property under this submerged land, it's going to be underground, basically.
Yeah, it's buried. It's buried as well. At some point, it's going to be. It's all buried until at some point it comes up into a landing station. So we may be constructing a landing station with all the data and electronics to be able to help make sure that that capacity benefits the community and enables the community to not just to communicate intro-wise, but internationally as well.
Okay, and you mentioned the amount of money that the total revenue that the Tomorrowland Trust is receiving. The percentage of that from GTA is what percentage? You were explaining how much GTA provides in capital for the lease of Tomorrowland Trust money. How much again is that, please?
Well, I think if the chairman noted that it was they generate about 800 and 850 grand a year from the commercial leases, I think we're probably about 500,000 of that 850 grand right now, based upon all of the lease agreements we have with the Tomorrowland Trust.
Okay, I appreciate that, because this all helps the Land for the Landless and getting these surveys done, and it's important. It's important that we do have these lands available for commercial uses, because this is the money that's generated to support the Land for the Landless and getting the surveys done. But I thank you, and thank you for your explanation. Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Attorney Phillips, did you have your hand up also?
Yes, Madam Chair. Just real quick. It's a response to a few comments and concerns that were raised earlier about the 5-year cap. And I just want to make clear there is no 5-year cap. There's a 5-year limit on commissions and some boards, but the government of Guam through the legislature can always lease property if a business person comes forward and they want to lease the property. For example, at the commercial port, there was an interest in property by the company at that time named Cementon. And that lease was forwarded to the legislature, was approved, and I believe this is in excess of 25 years. And the restriction is on the port board from leasing for more than 5 years. And I believe that's, if there's caps with commissions and agencies, that's what it is. It's a cap for them, but it's not a restriction on the government of Guam land. So I think that the commentary that, well, we're not able to lease out our lands is partially correct if you're talking about yourself, but if you're talking about the legislature and the government of Guam, that's not true. All lands can be leased out.
All right. Senators, any final questions, or anyone wanting to make a final comment? Okay, Senator Marsh, type to know.
Seduis Masi, Madam Chair. So since we did get into some specific discussion, I just wanted to point out that, you know, the ocean, the submerged lands, these are incredibly important resources. And so I'm not deciding anything one way or the other. It's just to look at this holistically. You know, they feed our people. People have subsisted off of them for thousands of years, and they want their children and grandchildren to continue to subsist on them. So to just in the future have these be part of the discussions. And of course, there's always balance. It's not that we're not going to develop it. It's not that we don't need to continue to develop and connect with the rest of the world, but to just have that balance of considerations. And with these, one of the questions I'd like to ask in the future is how long these casings last, how long the cables last, are they to be expanded from, or, you know, do they just become yet another structure where change was made to the land or the submerged lands, and then we move on to create new structures, and there isn't that potential. So hopefully, if something is disrupted, it's done so in a way that it can be expanded upon in the future, and it doesn't just become yet another relic in the waters. So it's those long-term considerations, I think, that are part of it. And so I just wanted to put that out there, that it's been really good discussion. It needs to be looking at both sides. How do we develop? How do we improve? How do we stay competitive? And how do we do so in these sustainable ways that make sure that we're still meeting our needs in the future? So I just wanted to throw that out there. So just Masi, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator. I have no further questions, I guess. I just want to point out, so Mr. Didingo, you're talking about the income that you provide to to Tomorrowland Trust right now. GTA pays Tomorrowland Trust for properties that were, most of those were properties when the government of Guam sold its telephone industry to GTA, or to another company. That land that they were mandated to lease their land where, for example, the buildings are on and the substations or whatever other infrastructure was in place, right? So I just want to commend the foresight of that, so that the trust actually does have some income going forward. And I want to point out that submerged lands are also leased out by Ancestral Lands Commission right now. So they are receiving income from that. But okay, so there being no other person to testify on the bill, Senator Terlaje, sponsor, I'll let you close on the bill, please.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I was trying, this bill was intended to help everyone on the commercial. Being that I heard from Mr. Phillips, Attorney Mike, thank you, Mike. Standalone bill sounds very good. It's a good option. And then you're right. The legislature is not restricted on the 5 years. That I clearly understand. I was trying to find a way to release or give some breathing room for Tomorrowland Trust. And if a standalone bill is needed, you can expect it coming very soon. And with that note, thank you, Madam Chair. I hope to get a copy of the testimonies provided by the participants, and then we can move from there. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight, for your important testimony. I very much appreciate all of it. So we will now close this hearing. The bill is duly heard. The time is now 7:32 p.m. Let me just announce the bill number is bill number 425-35. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank
Be safe.
Good night.